Boston's winter gala glittered beneath chandeliers that threw cold light over colder people, but Sarah Harrison felt the room stiffen the moment she entered. She wasn't supposed to stand out, she never did, but tonight the whispers sharpened like glass. Genevieve Harrison watched her from the staircase, eyes narrowing with a satisfaction Sarah recognized too well. "Stay close," Nate murmured at her side, trying to sound calm. "If she starts something." "She already has," Sarah answered, her voice steady despite the dread curling in her chest. Moments later, Genevieve stepped forward, her heels striking the marble with ruthless precision as she raised a folded check between two manicured fingers. "Ladies and gentlemen," she called out, her tone silk-wrapped poison. A small contribution for someone out of her depth. The crowd parted, eager to witness humiliation dressed as generosity. Sarah's heart slammed once, hard, before her expression shifted, almost imperceptibly, into something the room wasn't meant to see. Her past was rising, cold and unstoppable. And then the ballroom doors crashed open. 4 men in dark, foreign-cut suits crossed the threshold with an authority that made even senators step back. The question wasn't who they were, but what they were here to reveal. Like the video and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt tales to follow this unfolding storm. The moment the 4 men crossed the ballroom floor, the atmosphere changed in a way Boston's elite had never felt. Conversations died. The quartet faltered mid-note. Even the air seemed to hesitate before moving around them. Sarah didn't flinch, but the faintest shift in her posture, chin lifting a fraction, shoulders straightening, caught Nate's eye. It was the first sign that something here was larger than humiliation, larger than the Harrison name itself. Captain Valerius Stark stopped less than an arm's length from her. His icy gaze locked on her with reverence that didn't belong in a Boston ballroom. "Your Highness," he said softly, but the words carried across the room like a command. Gasps rippled outward. People who had mocked her minutes earlier stared, lost between disbelief and panic. Genevieve's triumphant smile disappeared as though someone had wiped it off her face. Sarah didn't bow her head. She didn't retreat. She simply met Valerius's eyes, and that simple act confirmed everything the room feared. This wasn't theater. This wasn't a stunt. This was power walking back into a life she had tried to bury. Genevieve tried to speak first. She always did. This is absurd," she stammered, though her voice had shrunk to something brittle and small. "My family will not be intimidated by silence." Valerius didn't shout. He didn't need to. The word hit the room like a physical force. Arthur Harrison swayed as if his knees might buckle. A senator stepped backward, nearly tripping over a waiter. Even Nate, who loved Sarah deeply, felt a shiver race through him. "Sarah," he whispered, voice trembling. "Tell me what's happening." Before she could answer, Genevieve lunged for the tattered check still clutched in her hand. "I don't care who she is, she will not stay in this family." Valerius took one step toward her, a single cold step that froze her mid-breath. "You attempted to purchase the departure of a sovereign heir with a piece of paper. I didn't know. And yet you believed you had the right." Sarah finally spoke, her tone no longer timid or apologetic. "She believed humiliation was her tool," she said. "But tonight she learns it's her downfall." The ballroom held its breath. Valerius addressed the room, his voice a controlled blade. The Princess of Silveria was insulted, threatened, and publicly degraded. This violates diplomatic protocol, international respect, and basic human dignity. And so do the consequences that follow. Arthur staggered forward, his voice breaking. "Please, Your Highness, we had no idea. You had no manners," Valerius replied. "Knowledge is irrelevant." He turned to Sarah. "Your father has ordered extraction. We leave now." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. She had fought the truth for years, hoping she could live as simply Sarah Harrison, loved for who she was, not what she represented. But hiding had cost her more than the truth ever could. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm. "I will go," she said. "But I will not leave unfinished cruelty behind me." She moved toward Genevieve, slow, deliberate steps that echoed louder than the music that once filled the hall. "You offered me $100,000, she said softly. "Not for freedom. For erasure." Genevieve blinked rapidly, unable to breathe properly. "I didn't know. You didn't care," Sarah said. "And that's worse." She turned slightly, addressing both Genevieve and the silent crowd that had watched her humiliation with hungry interest. "You believed you could decide my worth. Now you will watch the cost of your arrogance." Valerius lifted a small, sleek device from his coat. "In accordance with direction from the Silverian Sovereign Fund," he announced, "all pending investments with the Harrison Foundation are terminated. Effective immediately." Arthur fell to his knees with a strangled gasp. My God, that deal was everything. Our contracts, our estates, our partnerships. Gone, Valerius said. As quickly as your politeness. Chloe, still clinging to Lord Barnaby Finch, began sobbing openly. You ruined us." "No," Sarah said. "Your mother did." She turned away before Chloe could answer. She had no interest in watching people who had mocked her drown in their own consequences. Her heart was too tired for victory, too bruised for pity. But Nate mattered. He whispered her name again, but this time it wasn't confusion. It was fear of losing her forever. "You were going to leave without letting me explain," he said. "Without letting me understand." Sarah met his eyes. "You saw what they did to me," she said. "And you said nothing." "I froze," he admitted, voice cracking. "But I never stopped loving you. I just didn't know how to fight them." "You were never meant to fight them," Sarah replied gently. "Only to see me." Before he could speak again, Valerius touched her arm. "Your Highness, the situation is unstable. We must depart." The extraction team closed in around her, forming a protective shield that parted the crowd like a tide. She didn't look back at Genevieve. There was nothing left to say. But she did glance at Nate, just a flicker of hope before duty tugged her away. The team escorted her outside, through crisp winter air sharp with a scent of pine and frost. A black diplomatic vehicle waited, and beyond it, the faint roar of engines from a private jet readied for departure. But before Sarah could step inside, a shout split the night. "Sarah! Don't go!" Nate burst through the front doors, running harder than he ever had in his life. Valerius moved instantly, positioning himself between them. "Stand down, Mr. Harrison." "No," Nate said breathlessly. "Not until she knows the truth." Sarah stepped forward. "What truth?" "That I choose you," he said. "Not my mother. Not the Harrisons. Not the legacy they worship more than love." She felt something in her chest loosen, painfully, beautifully. "You're too late," Valerius muttered. "No," Sarah said quietly. "He isn't." The captain looked at her sharply, but she held firm. "If he comes with us, he comes because he chose me knowing who I am. And if he fails to adapt," Valerius asked, "then that will be our burden," she said. "Not yours." For a long moment, the captain studied them both. Then he stepped aside. Nate approached slowly, hands trembling. "I don't know your world," he said. "But I know that every version of you, the princess, the fighter, the woman who reads by cheap lamplight, is the one I want." A tear slipped down her cheek, carried by the cold wind before she could wipe it away. "Then you're coming with me," she whispered. They walked toward the waiting plane hand in hand. The guards closed ranks behind them, sealing off the past. Back inside the gala hall, Genevieve Harrison watched from the window as the diplomatic convoy sped away. Her empire, her pride, her control, all shattered. And the final consequence came swiftly. Her phone rang. The board of the Harrison Foundation had convened without her. They blamed her for the financial collapse. They blamed her for the scandal. They blamed her for everything. And for once they were right. Her position, terminated. Her reputation, ruined. Her social standing, erased. Not by Sarah, but by her own cruelty. As the jet lifted into the night sky, Sarah rested her head on Nate's shoulder, quiet, exhausted but finally free. Yet something still waited beyond the horizon. A question sharp as the winter air. What price will Nate face when he steps into a crown-shaped world that never wanted him? As the jet ascended into the dark sky, Sarah watched the city lights fade until they blurred into a single, quiet shimmer. For the first time in years, the weight she carried felt different. Not lighter but finally shared. Nate sat beside her, still unsure of the world he had just stepped into, yet steady in the choice he made. His presence reminded her that truth, once spoken aloud, didn't break a life. It rebuilt it. She no longer needed to hide behind borrowed simplicity or apologies. The woman who walked into that ballroom had been pushed to her limits, but the one leaving it understood something deeper. Strength wasn't always loud, and love, real love, didn't shrink in the face of power. It met it. Far below, the Harrison estate grew smaller until it vanished completely, a quiet symbol of what happens when cruelty mistakes itself for authority. Their downfall wasn't her revenge. It was the cost of their own arrogance, a reminder that deception isn't the only thing that collapses under pressure, so does entitlement. Sarah leaned her head against Nate's shoulder as the clouds opened before them, a soft glow rising at the horizon. Change wasn't something to fear anymore. It was the path forward. And somewhere between the fading lights and the widening sky, she realized her story wasn't defined by the life she left behind, but by the courage to step into the one she chose. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales to help our community grow.